And I think there's a little of what you could call manipulation in Serial that for some reason I kind of bridled out a little in a way that I don't think I would have in a novel. And I'm trying to figure out why. So, like, an example is, an early episode, like episode 2, she's talking about the relationship between Adnan, who was indicted and convicted, and Hay, his girlfriend, who was murdered. And it's like, so there was this breakup, Hay blew him off, and the question is, a big question in this episode is, how did he react to that? Was he really, like, upset and bitter in a way that could have led him to kill her, or did he take it in stride, or what? And she kind of weighs the evidence, on one hand, on the other, and kind of comes out like, he doesn't seem to be all that torn up about it. That's a general drift of that. Well, then later, there's a key piece of evidence that comes to our attention. And it's a note that she had written him right after they broke up saying, look, take it easy, man. Relationships end. It's like, it's clear that he's reacted very adversely to it. And it's like a real issue with her. And she goes on and on about it. So clearly, he had taken it very badly, not to mention the fact that on the back of this document, right, there's an exchange between him and a classmate of his who was a friend of Hayes. Okay, so he's writing in pen, she's writing in pencil, and they pass it back and forth, and they're writing whatever on the back of it. But when the cops find the note in his house, at the top of the back, in pen and apparently in his handwriting, it says, "I'm going to kill." Okay? Now, first of all, there's two pieces of evidence here. The fact that he did take the relationship badly, I think that's significant. I'm going to kill, who knows what you make of it. Sarah Koenig is more dismissive of it than I would have been. She says, oh, well, it sounds like something that's in a true crime novel or something. Well, so what? I mean,
it sounds like something in fiction that they would find the note saying, I want to kill, and then hold it up to the light.
Okay, but this isn't
fiction. The person's name on it or something.
But this isn't fiction. So if you find it, it's all the more important by virtue of the fact that it sounds like you'd have to make it up, because it's real. Okay?
Right, but at the same time, he could have said, I want to kill, Mr. Smith in geometry class because he gave us too much homework last night.
And then he just ran out of ink, right? Okay, anyway, but that's not the manipulation. Leave aside which of these things is more important. Certainly, the contents of Hayes' note are important. Important. My point is, I don't think we see this until several episodes later. And in the second episode, she's purporting to grapple with the question, well, was he upset? Wasn't he upset? And I think that's what makes me feel manipulated, is that she acts like, okay, this is the part where I'm trying to think this through. And yet there's this, and I don't think she has an excuse for not having the evidence at that point, as she does with some other things. Like the fact that he stole from the mosque really comes to her attention later.
Right.
But this I don't think does. And so that that bothered me.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't remember the exact details, but I'll take what you're saying if what you're saying is true. The difference between this and even kind of the new journalism style, nonfiction is that I think I saw someone refer to it online as show your work journalism. So if you are doing a math problem in high school, you have to show how you came to the answer. So she's showing the process. She's recording them driving in the car to go interview people. Fine. And so usually, if this was a story, if the New York Times took this story and even if they ran it in the magazine, we would not be hearing all this stuff in the background of what was happening. So it's so there's a sense of radical transparency in this. That, so she didn't get an interview with Jay, who's the central figure in the story, and Jay, a couple of weeks after Sarah ended, gave an interview. In case
somebody hasn't watched this, he's the guy who apparently helped Adnan.
Right, so he's the guy who
he helped Adnan bury the body, deal with the aftermath of the murder.
So the whole case, is relied on Jay's testimony. Right. That's why Adnan was convicted.
Right.
So, so they do a whole episode about him, but they couldn't get an interview with him. So it's possible that, if this was a story that, the New Yorker commissioned or something, and they couldn't get an interview with Jay, maybe they would have killed the story entirely because he's so important, or they certainly would not have devoted, 500 words talking about like the failed attempt to go interview Jay.
Yeah.
They just probably would have said, we reached out to Jay and he declined to comment or something like that. So we're hearing a lot more about the process of journalism than you would in, you know, a new journalism piece, or like, you know, In Cold Blood was like the original of this form. And, you know, there's been some questions in recent years raised about how truthful that was, but Truman Capote is totally absent from In Cold Blood. We just hear, you know, it's written in the style of a novel, but you don't hear about Truman Capote, you know, going to interview people and kind of like getting a crush on one of the guys, which is what the movies that came out.
But does this somehow get her off the hook for withholding this evidence until later? I mean, I think if she had, in the second episode, if she closes it with that document, and then it says, I'm going to kill, which, whatever you think of the significance of that, it has huge psychological impact on a jury and on a listener. Mm-hmm. If she closes the second episode with that, I think she loses a number of listeners. It's like, well, the guy did it, okay? And so how is any of this like an excuse for withholding that evidence?
Well, I mean, she didn't withhold it because we know about it. So she withheld it. She decided, so she's a journalist, she decided what order we're going to hear things. And so, you know, in the first episode, which they made after a year of investigation, we hear about this witness, Asia McClain, and we can talk about that because there's actually some news that broke this week about this woman who signed an affidavit. But, you know, so there's this idea that, like, why would they be doing a story about this if this guy is actually guilty? So there's kind of a setup, like, journalist finds a cold case, the guy claims he's innocent. If he does a year's worth of journalism and it turns out the guy is actually guilty, like, that's not a very exciting story. So we're kind of in this, so there's like this form already set up. So then in the first episode, it seems like they find this witness who says, you know, she's alibi witness for Adnan, saw him in the library. Right. And then they're like, oh, so you're like, oh my God, like they cracked the case, like he's going to get out. And then you find out that, like, for weird reasons, like, she wasn't actually called to testify, and the prosecutor said she recanted her story, which she signed an affidavit this week saying that wasn't true. So someone has lied under oath, either her or the prosecutor. And then at the end of the first episode, you find out, oh, this is like, even though they found this woman, you know, 15 years later, it's like legally can't do anything for Adnan's case. So, you know, they're playing with our expectations a lot, but I think because, you know, compare this to the Rolling Stone UVA rape story and like that debacle, and how, you know, the Eardley, or however you say her name, the journalist who wrote that story, you know, the first scene is told from the perspective of the alleged victim, and, you know, but they didn't interview anyone else. It's written in a novelistic style, saying basically this is what happened, when there's a lot of evidence showing that that's probably not what happened. Yeah. And then compare it to Sarah Koenig, where she's, you know, letting everyone, you know, have their say, you know, reading the trial testimony, playing audio clips. So I think, you know, it's like, it's weird that these two things align, but like one of them was like how to do journalism and one of them was how not to do journalism.